After learning the exact location where Vegapunk hid the broadcasting device, the Gorosei immediately took action and headed towards the Iron Giant. They wanted to stop the scientists' broadcast immediately before too much important information was revealed. To do that, Jupiter wanted to crush the Iron Giant. The scene shifts to Hachinosu Pirate Island after hearing the shocking news from Vegapunk. The pirates on the island were extremely excited. Believing that there were countless treasures at the bottom of the sea, they shouted and competed to dive down to explore. However, some thought that finding treasure at the bottom of the sea was very difficult, because there were giant creatures at the bottom of the sea capable of swallowing an entire ship. Others thought it would be great if they could find a mermaid to guide them. Somewhere at sea, the captain of a pirate crew was extremely excited about the information about the advanced civilization that Vegapunk was talking about. Although it was hard to believe that the entire world would be submerged to the bottom of the sea, the captain was still very happy to invite other crew members to prepare for a dive. The scene shifts to Vice Admiral Smoker at this time. He was moving while contacting his subordinate. Asking where she was now, Tashigi said she was at the hospital with the SWORD unit, inside the hospital room. Kobe was extremely worried, not knowing what to do next. Currently, there was too much information for them to process, and his teammates advised him to rest and recover. If Kobe followed them now, he would only be a hindrance to everyone. Another member then came in and announced that their captain was recovering very well. Hearing that the others were also relieved, Kobe asked what would happen next if Vegapunk's words were true, and the other guy admitted that if it were true, the Marines would face a crisis. His female friend thought it was time for their sword unit to act. The leader of the sword unit, Drake, was still listening to Vegapunk speak. At this time, all over, people began to believe the claims made by this scientist, wanting to know what Pirate King Roger had left behind after learning about the erased history. At the same time, at Nami's group, the shield had been turned off by Stussy, creating an escape route for them. Nami immediately asked Brook to prepare the ship to leave, just waiting for Jinbei and Zoro to return, and they could safely land on the sea. However, Lilith saw that there were many marine ships gathered below, and if they landed now, they would likely have to engage in combat with many marine warships. Brook had also finished fueling the Sunny's propulsion system, and Nami contacted Jinbei asking where they were. He said they were almost back, but a monster was running towards everyone in front. They were chasing after that giant horse, warning those on the ship to be careful, because the monster looked very strong. Nusjuro then jumped straight to Nami to attack, and the girl didn't have time to react, so she just stood still. The others also showed fear of this giant creature, and Lilith realized that this was the Gorosei. Seeing this, Zoro asked Jinbei to throw him towards the enemy, and he used Fishman Karate to throw the swordsman straight. While flying, Zoro drew his two swords and slashed directly at Nusjuro, but the opponent easily sensed and parried the slash. The two swordsmen clashed, but with his ability, Zoro successfully knocked the giant monster away, thus ensuring the safety of the remaining crew members on the ship. Jinbei then successfully caught Zoro's body from above, and he asked Nami to make the ship run immediately, knowing that the enemy in front was too dangerous. They would find a way to jump onto the ship later, so she didn't need to worry. Back on the beach below, the giant ship was being attacked by the Marines. At this time, Bonney's group had successfully boarded the ship, just waiting for Luffy to arrive, and they could escape this place. She was worried that this giant ship would not be able to withstand the Navy's dense firepower. The Vice Admirals were now directing all their forces to surround and block the escape route, thinking that the giant's ship was only large in size and nothing special. They believed that if they continuously fired cannonballs, it would sink just like other ships. On the beach, Sanji was still waiting for his captain to arrive. He was worried and shouted Luffy's name loudly. Surprisingly, his friend heard him and replied, saying that he was almost there and they should start the ship immediately. Atlas also urged them to hurry before the ship was submerged, and from a distance, Dorry had already spotted the ship. Luffy looked very happy to be able to board the giant ship, and Brogy asked Oimo and Kashi to start the ship immediately. The people on board lowered the sails and turned around. Seeing this, the Navy Vice Admirals ordered a blockade to prevent anyone from escaping, but no matter how many cannonballs they fired, the giant pirate cruise ship remained unharmed. Instead, the crew members counterattacked by firing arrows at the Navy, and the weapons they used were all large. This caused heavy losses to the Navy, but they still tried to resist. With its enormous size, the giant pirate cruise ship crushed the ships below. The crew members also jumped down to attack, and the small Navy soldiers were not strong enough to harm the giants' bodies. Many warships were destroyed in this way, and seeing that the situation was not good, another Vice Admiral requested all warships to gather in one place to attack, and 2 other Vice Admirals were also present to assist. One person controlled a mechanical monster to fire at the giant ship, while the other rushed in to attack directly with punches. She hardened her arm and unleashed a series of powerful punches at Kashi, who was immediately knocked down and fell into the sea. Seeing this scene, the Navy soldiers were re-energized to fight. Back on the island, Luffy realized that the giant pig was no longer chasing them, and he wondered where it had gone. Dorry thought it didn't matter. What needed to be done now was to jump on the ship and escape. The reason War Curie was no longer chasing Luffy was to focus on attacking the Iron Giant with the other Gorosei. He was still moving around the island without realizing the danger. The 4 Gorosei in their monster forms had now surrounded the Iron Giant. Realizing that this was the entity that had attacked Mary Jawoy's 200 years ago. Remembering this made Saturn extremely angry, and at the same time, Vegapunk transmitted information, hoping that everyone in the world would remember it. It concerned the letter D in the names of special people. Hearing this, the Gorosei immediately launched an attack on the Iron Giant. They did not want anyone to know the secret of those with the letter D in their names. Just as Vegapunk was speaking at a crucial point, the Iron Giant was knocked down by War Curie and fell into the sea. The impact caused the broadcasting device inside to malfunction, and the Iron Giant falling into the sea created a large wave that pushed back all the Navy warships. At this point, the broadcast stopped, leaving those watching regretful that they could not hear the end. Although they successfully stopped it, the Gorosei were extremely worried if the information just mentioned had been revealed. The Iron Giant sank to the bottom of the sea, and in his mind, he was wondering where Joy Boy was, because he really wanted to meet that person again. At this moment, people all over the world were confused about what had happened when Vegapunk's video was suddenly cut off. Many questions were raised. Many people thought that the scientist might have been eliminated by the world government to hide a secret. But there were also those who suspected that the one who killed Vegapunk was Luffy. Returning to the Gorosei, they were in their giant monster forms, so most of the marine soldiers didn't recognize them. After learning that Vegapunk's video had been cut, the Gorosei were temporarily relieved. However, they still contacted York to ask how many other versions of Vegapunk were still alive. She also said that only Lilith and Atlas were left now. Upon receiving this important information, the Gorosei ordered them to be eliminated. This way, the government could later take over research and development through Vegapunk's remaining brain. The scene shifted to Stussy. After freeing his comrade, he asked her to leave. He warned that if Lucci came, he wouldn't be able to stop him. That's why she should leave as soon as possible. Stussy was about to say something, but was told to leave. She knew Kaku meant well for her, so she turned and ran. Out at sea, the giant pirate ship had started to move, and right behind it were the 3 captains. Luffy, Brogy, and Dorry jumped straight onto the ship to reunite with the other members. Sanji's group was very happy to see this, relieved that all 3 captains were unharmed. Luffy stood on the giant ship, extremely excited. Everything around him delighted him. He asked Sanji where the other members were, and his friend said that Nami's group was still stuck above. Luffy felt hungry and asked for something to eat. Below, the vice admirals were still in pursuit, But then Doll was forced to stop because Bonney used her ability to shrink her body. With such childlike bodies, they couldn't fight. Bonney stood high above, laughing and saying that if the Marines let her escape, they would be in big trouble. Doll angrily ordered them to open fire on the giant ship. Sanji then contacted Nami's group above, asking about the situation there, and learned that they were also preparing to leave. Thanks to Edison, they would probably be able to land in the sea. But if anything unexpected happened, they hoped the group below would help. Hearing this, Sanji promised to save all the girls, and as for the other members, he didn't care. The giants then announced that a large bird was flying towards them, which Sanji had anticipated. The Gorosei would not let their group leave safely. The scene shifted to Luffy. He had been taken to the giant's dining room. The chef knew he ate a lot, so he had prepared a feast for him. Even though he had eaten his fill, Luffy still felt it wasn't enough, and asked the chef to make him a few more dishes. Above, the situation was getting worse. Marcus Mars, in his giant bird form, spewed fire towards the ship. To reduce the damage, 3 giants had to use shields to block it, but the fire was too intense, causing the ship to burn. Sanji, who was protected, also thanked everyone. Bonney worriedly said she wanted to get her father and Vegapunk out of there as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the fire would burn them. Brogy and Dorry knew they couldn't ignore the giant monsters, especially the fire-breathing bird. Marcus Mars continued to want to spew fire towards them, but at this moment, the drums of liberation sounded. After eating his fill, Luffy seemed to have regained his strength. Immediately after, the entire area around the ship was turned into rubber. Frankie also asked his captain to stop the monster, and immediately after, the face of Sun God Nika appeared. Luffy joyfully jumped high, attracting everyone's attention, hearing the cheerful sound he made. Dorry and Brogy instinctively danced to the familiar rhythm of the giant's homeland. In their excitement, they forgot to put out the fire on the ship. Bonney and Sanji watched everyone dancing, not understanding what was happening. Kuma used to teach his daughter this familiar dance, and remembering that, Bonney knew the person in front of her was Sun God Nika. Luffy had transformed into a giant, which surprised the girl. He didn't know who the Nika Bonney was talking about was, but he knew very well that her wish was to defeat those who had harmed Kuma. Initially, Bonney was worried she wouldn't be able to do it. Luffy continued to encourage her, confident that she would succeed. He then changed his form for Bonney to remember. This was the appearance of a free person, and the warrior of liberation, as Kuma had described before. That person would appear with laughter and a vibrant rhythm that would make those around them want to dance. After feeling more confident, Bonney activated her devil fruit power, transforming her body into the form of Sun God Nika. Witnessing this scene, even Luffy was surprised. He was very happy that Bonney was just like him. The father below also saw this image. Kuma recalled his promise to Ginny that he would raise Bonney. The giants below also showed excitement at having 2 Nikas here. The Marines were fearful of the 2 white giants hovering in the air. On the shore, Mercury and Jupiter sensed something ominous and acted, with the monsters approaching to attack one after another. However, Luffy and Bonney were not afraid. On the contrary, they were extremely confident. Even the Iron Giant submerged at the bottom of the sea had been awakened. He sensed Joy Boy was here. Marcus Mars speculated that Bonney's form was just an illusion created by the devil fruit. He accumulated energy and aimed it at the 2 Nikas. Seeing this, Sanji asked his captain to block the attack, and the other giants also cheered him on. Knowing that even if they crushed the Gorosei, they still wouldn't die, Luffy came up with a new way to drive them all away. He transformed his body into an elastic ball. The opponent's flames also caused Luffy pain. However, he asked the others to attack his body with all their might. Hearing this, Sanji and Frankie understood and immediately jumped up to follow the captain's wishes. Bonney hesitated, unsure whether to hit Luffy or not. Marcus Mars was then restrained by Luffy and couldn't move. He wanted everyone to attack him immediately. Since this was an order from the captain, Sanji didn't think twice and just followed. Receiving encouragement from Luffy, Bonney transformed her arm to become larger. Thus, the three of them attacked at the same time, causing Luffy pain because they used haki. But he still endured it, relying on the elastic mechanism of rubber. Luffy immediately exerted his strength to push Marcus Mars away. The opponent could not resist. As a result, they were pushed away by Luffy's group. According to their speculation, he wouldn't be able to return immediately, so they would take this opportunity to escape. Sanji didn't know where Usopp's group was. They should have landed in the sea by now. Atlas thought something had happened and had to fly to check. She knew York was watching her and Lilith, so she was afraid of becoming a burden to the Straw Hat Pirates. At the same time, Vegapunk's video continued to play, but the transmission was unstable, making it difficult to hear what he wanted to say clearly. At Luffy's location, suddenly many people fell from above. It turned out that Jupiter had previously spat them out from inside his stomach. Seeing this scene, Luffy laughed loudly, thinking it was a water fountain. Brogy knew the sea monster would come here, so he warned everyone to be careful. Immediately after, Jupiter used his giant mouth to suck everything into his stomach. Bonney also tried to cling to the ship, but couldn't maintain her Nika form. Fortunately, Sanji grabbed her hand, so she was safe. Dorry asked the crew to furl the sails and use the oars to change direction. Luffy rushed forward and delivered a powerful punch directly at the monster. Witnessing this scene, even the Marines couldn't understand what was happening. Warcury took advantage of Luffy being there and attacked the ship. He warned that the pig was very tough. If they collided, their ship would surely be crushed. Even Brogy and Dorry didn't know what to do in this situation. Luffy suddenly heard the Iron Giant call out, "Joy Boy!" He had fully awakened. From under the sea, the Iron Giant delivered a punch that sent Warcury flying. Perhaps this was the right time for the Iron Giant to act, looking at its massive body. Luffy was extremely surprised. He always loved giant robots like that.